I'm really excited to dive into this module with you. It is about temperaments, and we often talk about our children's temperaments when they're very small. Think back to your child when they were a very tiny baby. They might have been a very easy sleeper, or they might have been a voracious eater, or they might have just been a really easy baby, or they might not have been. So even in those earliest stages, we talked about their temperament with other moms. We shared that with our doctor appointments, right? We already started to tap into who they were as people. And so that doesn't change. Their temperaments stay with them for life. We all have a temperament, a natural way of being. Now, it isn't set in stone. You can absolutely evolve in your temperament, but this is just a really great foundation for understanding just kind of a baseline of who your child is. So this is an activity I encourage everyone in the family to do because I think it helps inform some decisions that you make and some values that you live out, right? Knowing your children, knowing the players in your family and how they show up in the world really helps guide the kinds of things that you do, the trips that you take, or the vacations that you plan, or the camps that you put them in, or the schoolwork that the electives in school that you hope that they, gravitate towards. So this is a very big chart. I can appreciate that. But I think it's important to walk through it because a couple of doctors, a couple of psychologists really identified 9 traits that guide a temperament package. And so really what this allows us to do is to dissect our children into little bits and pieces to say, oh, in this specific way, this is the temperament that they have. And so it really helps guide so many decisions that you make, and we'll get into that. So let's just look at a couple of these together. So the temperaments are on the left side, and then a small description is on the right side. There are heaps of information about this online if you wanted to go dig deeper, but this is really just kind of the broad strokes. So, activity. How active is your child? Now, you'll notice in the workbook there is a chart that is there. It's blank and it has a number of different columns. You can put different people's names in the columns and fill it out for each person. And if the children are old enough, they can certainly fill it out with you or on their own. But it's really a great way just to get a kind of snapshot to see how they see themselves and how you see them. That's just always a very interesting thing for me, is to kind of be like, how do you see things? How do I see things? And are they even the same thing? So activity, how active is your child? Distractibility, how easily do outside influences distract your child from doing something that they're trying to do? Either it's schoolwork, or they're trying to do their chores, or they're trying to go to bed. How easily distractible are they? Do you have an intense child? Some of us do. Some of us have a child that just operates at a different vibration, and that's totally fine and absolutely amazing. But if you know about it, it might inform some of your choices. Or maybe you have a very opposite child that is not very intense, that is very more flat and more even keeled and, not very intense at all, but a little bit more of, a calm river as opposed to, raging rapids. That helps to know. Regularity. So this really is about sleeping and eating patterns. Those just kind of natural patterns that they have. Are they easy sleepers? Are they morning kiddos? Are they night owls? Do they like to eat a couple of times a day, bigger meals, or are they really just naturally grazers and they just want to always have some, small little drip going on in some kind of way? Sensory is the next category. How sensitive is your child to physical sensations? So that is both about things touching them. Some children, are very sensitive to physical sensations, temperature changes, clothing, tags on the back of their shirts, itchy socks or socks that don't quite fit well. Some kids are very in tune to that and very sensitive. And other children could literally have their foot coming through a hole in their sock and they not even notice. It happens. Not my children, but I know it happens. So how sensitive is your child to those types of things, to the sensory things? Approachability. So this is really about when a stranger is coming towards your child. Is your child approachable and they're like, hey, stranger, how's it going? Let me tell you about my doll, or let me tell you about my soccer game. And they're just very open. Other children are more reserved or withdrawn, or they might be the one that goes behind your leg, or maybe they're just approachable with some people and not with others. There's no judgment on it. It's just something for you to know. The next one is adaptability. So when you're thinking about your child's temperament, how adaptable are they to changes in the schedule or in their life, right? If there's a fire alarm in the middle of a test, are they overwhelmed and frenetic? Or are they like, okay, that's totally fine, we can go outside now? Just understanding what your child naturally gravitates towards helps you understand their temperament. Persistence. So this one is really about how long and how hard will your child stay at a task that's hard. This is not how many times will they ask you for another cookie. That's very persistent, and most children will be persistent that way. This is really when they butt against something they don't know, like a new math term and they are just lost in geometry, or they have to do something they don't understand. And for younger children, it's often schoolwork related, right? Because that is the bulk of their world, where they're getting an onslaught of new information and new challenges all the time. So we see it most often in school environments, but it certainly can be anywhere in their life. When they are hitting up against something that they think is really hard, maybe it's a puzzle and they just cannot do it, do they stick with it and just kind of work through the angst and the frustration and just keep at it? Or are they just like, I'm done, I can't do this, I can't do this, right? No judgment, it's just good to know, right? If your child really struggles with puzzles because that kind of attention and that kind of focus is really hard for them, then there are obviously things that you can do to help build that muscle, but it also is a sign that they might need different things. They might need something a little bit more physical. If they scored high in the active level, right? Then you're like, you know what, we're not going to do a puzzle, we're going to set an indoor obstacle course, right? And so on that rainy day, it helps inform the choices. What are you going to do with your kids? Right? Are you going to pull out all the puzzles and the board games, or are you going to have ninja warriors, you know, battling on the sofa with rolled up towels as swords? Right? Either way is totally awesome, as long as it honors who your child is. And the last category is mood. So in this category, it really is if your child is a glass half empty or a glass half full natural temperament. It does not mean that they cannot be excited if they are a glass half empty person, or that they can't feel down if they're a glass half full person. What it means is, what is their set point of mood? Are they typically optimistic and bubbly and a little bit bouncy and a little bit like, ooh, here we go, ooh, you know, a little bit uppity? Or are they a little bit more mellow and calm and not quite seeing the silver lining all the time on their own, right? So this is really a snapshot at your child now. If you took this quiz, I guess, or did this assessment 6 months ago or 3 years ago, it's not going to be the same, right? Perhaps your child was not active then because they were a teen or, you know, a tween, and their body just felt really foreign and their arms weren't working and they felt lanky and their head was tiny and their body was growing and they just felt off. But now that they're 16 and they're kind of coming into their fuller body, they might be super active, right? They might be on the soccer team or on the baseball team or in swimming. They might be in gymnastics or dance, right? Because now they're more confident in their body. So this is not a one and done at all. This is really, where are they today? And how can you help support them? Because if they want to be doing different things, if they want to be having a temperament that's a little bit different than what their natural temperament is, then that's going to take investment, right? If they want to be less distractible, then they are going to have to learn techniques and tools to focus differently, to shut down outside stimulus, to create a space that doesn't have a lot of distractions, right? It's a muscle. They can absolutely master it, but it's going to take intention, right? So this is not a one and done, as I said. Once you know your child's temperament now, check in with them again in 6 months or a year and just say, you know, how is it going? Like, maybe they were intense in a moment because that's where they were, right? They were all hyped in their hormones or in their confidence or in their, you know, in their freneticness of their own life, and now they've settled a little bit. It happens, right? We all have ebbs and flows. But if you and your partner take this is very good for date night, I have to say, because if one partner is like, I'm super active, I want to go to the gym, I want to go hiking, I want to go out, do all these things, and the other partner is like, you know what? I want to read a book. I want to curl up on the sofa and watch a movie. I want to, you know, try a new banana bread recipe and stay home and have a nice home cooked meal. That is temperament coming out in play. So you don't have conflict in turning on each other. You have different temperaments, and that can inform your choices, right? So either this person says, okay, I'll go hiking with you this weekend, but next weekend it's movie marathon, right? So in any of your relationships, knowing your temperament adds value because you know yourself and you know how to honor yourself and your children in their natural state. And that is always a great thing. So thank you for joining us for Temperament. Please fill out the chart below and know that you can come back to this at any point and check in how things are going, especially with young children. Their temperament does shift dramatically as they experience new things, as their worlds get bigger, right? As they start getting older and, you know, going to middle school, their world gets bigger. Going to high school, their world gets bigger still. So anytime there's a leap in their life, it really is a good time to check in and say, how are we doing? You know, that child that's super approachable might just not be approachable anymore. It might just be a phase, or something might have happened, right? Something might have happened that scared them. And so that's a conversation, because they might be in a little bit of a personal winter, and you could help guide them back to summer. So please use this as a tool to understand your children better, to help create opportunities for them to really experience summer in their natural state. That's what we want. So I will see you in the next module. Thank you for joining me.